I have been buried in Final Fantasy XIV Stormblood for the last 2.5 months, which is why this channel hasn't been updated in a while. And I have to say, this expansion, which I was expecting to be my favorite one of FF14, has left me feeling they really missed the mark somewhere. Welcome back, Classy Crew, to another journal in the land of Eorzea. This one is going to be potentially the largest journal I've ever done. It definitely covers the most. Usually my journals cover 2 to 3 streams tops. This one, I got to talk about the last 14 plus streams. Well, the last journal was when I was just getting the Sheila tribes together. And since then, I've completed Stormblood. I've completed the post game of Stormblood. I've cleaned up my Heaven's Ward endgame content, which I hadn't finished. And now there's just a few last things to finish up at the end of Stormblood. And I've even seen the trailer to Shadowbringer. So I'm a lot more well-versed in FF14 lore, but I'm still left scratching my head over some decisions and over this expansion. For context, I love samurai. And so when I saw that Stormblood was heavily themed around going out east to like this samurai-filled world with ninjas and stuff, I was like, ooh, I'm down for that. And then a war against the Empire, like I love my Imperial climax battles with empires. I just think they're cool. OG Star Wars, but just like rebels trying to overcome an empire. I love those tales. So there's a lot of stuff to cover, endgame, postgame, MSQ, as well as some of the little things I've done. Like for example, I've started dabbling a lot more in my just off-stream FF14 stuff, like leveling up my craft. All of my jobs are now at least above level 20 in crafting. I am aiming to just get them up all over, well, up to level 70. So we're working on that, which by the way, in the last journal I had shared that I had found this website that tracks all your achievement and stuff. And I can say this is just how slow the grind is. So in about 2.5 months, I have increased my achievement completion from 5% to a whopping 8%. So we got 3% higher. I have collected 1% more minions, increasing it from 8 to 9. I've increased my title ownership from 4 to 6%. And instead of 3% on my mounts, I now have 5% of all the game mounts. So I mean, it's not like I'm also playing every night. I play about 8 hours a week tops, maybe 10 hours of FF14. So the grind is slow. All right, let's break down the MSQ. I'm not sure how to do this because it's so much content, so we're gonna go high level notes, and if I'm missing anything or I ruin the flow of things, just please forgive me. I'm covering the things that really stood out to me. That's what I'm doing. So like I said, Sheila tribes, we finished everything, we united them, and then we handed the Sheila leadership over to the moles, which, you know, they seem like pretty cool people. They're not overly aggressive and want to fight me all the time. More on that later. So anyways, now with all my allies rallied, I could finally take over the Doma Castle, which this was a really cool plot point. We got the cutscene of taking over the castle. All this led to the eventual collapse of the castle on Yotsuyu and Gosetsu, which honestly was quite a sad moment. Yotsuyu at this point, I was hating on a lot, and I hated her even more of like, just freaking die. She got like shot and then she got like stabbed. And honestly, I was so upset to losing Gosetsu, or at least I thought I did. This is another like complaint I have of FF14 of just characters not staying dead. Except the ones you all really, really love as FF14 fans, because some of the characters that have died and have stayed dead so far, I think her name was Moonbrea, if I remember correctly, and Hoshafan. Like, I know that the community really loves those characters. I developed no emotional connections, but Gosetsu, I was like, no, Gosetsu, he was one of my favorites. And I really thought I was losing him for real this time, only to find out I was not, which, you know what? I might as well go on this tangent. The whole Gosetsu and Yotsuyu relationship that ensued in post-game is probably one of my favorite narrative arcs I've gone out of FF14. Like, I went from Yotsuyu was an interesting villain. Like, I loved hating her. Then when they went further in 4.2, I believe, with the Gosetsu and Tsuyu arc where she loses her memory, and there's this just endearing relationship of like, you just see what she is like with all of that trauma and with all of that evil character building of what she went through her life. Like, if you strip that away, what would she be like as this innocent child? And like, she was just trying to make Gosetsu happy, and the whole like arc of trying to find persimmons because he was saying how like he hadn't had it for a long time, and just how gentle Gosetsu is with his little Tsuyu. That relationship, I just melted over. I loved how it was. And I guess I can't really talk about that arc without talking about how it ended. Getting introduced to Asahi, which like out of the gate, my community hated him, and I don't blame them. I didn't like him either. He's got a very hateable face that just gets worse, especially when he goes like full evil. And the fact that he gets rid of Artsuyu, like he freaking brings out the bloodlust in her, converts her, and then we get this, we have to go fight her as Tsukuyomi, which also as a primal design, I really loved. I thought it was a beautiful design. And it was very iconic for my community because right as we hit about the 1% health left on her, we almost wiped out. There was only one heal. Oh, well, the whole fight, there was only one healer. But at the end, there was one healer, 2 tanks. They were almost dead. I thought we were done. Like, if you look at the stream, I thought we died at the 0.1% health mark. But no, we did win.
0.1%.
So overall, that was the send-off to Tsuyu. But, oh, man, it was so sad. I really... That arc, I could live it over again. It was just that good. That was a really roundabout way to go from the whole Yutsuyu killing Gosetsu. But anyways, so with the storming of Doma finished, I went back and decided to finish off my samurai questline, which I had really fallen off for caring about it. I thought it was a lot more interesting in the Realm Reborn in Eorzea, like when you are trying to find your master and then studying under him. I liked that story arc. And it was promising how we were coming to this land and we were learning about our master's like old disciple, which turned out to be like evil, but he's not really evil. He's just rebellious against the system. And like, it's actually interesting. I was reading up on some discussions on forums about how the whole narrative arc of Stormblood is all about like rebellion and embracing freedom. And then you have this side story of the samurai where there is a rebel trying to fight a government which is doing some pretty nasty stuff, like burning parents for the crimes of their son. And you as the character are like the police and the government representative who's like, yeah, we don't rebel. You got to follow the system. Now I get that the samurai arc is actually based on more like medieval samurai times and what they would have done there. So I find it interesting, but I still feel just overall my personal reaction, I just did not care about the samurai side quest at this point. The Ugetsu fight was crazy. Like he was stacking so many attacks. I just did not know where to position myself. Overall, it wasn't for me. Like, was it a bad story arc? I don't think it was necessarily bad. I just felt that for me, it wasn't very impactful. I preferred the one-on-one relationship that we were developing over in Eorzea. So with that, my main questline's pretty much done. I've been told that the samurai questline doesn't really get that much interesting post Stormblood, like in Shadowbringers and beyond, so I'm not really sure what there is there. But it feels pretty final, like the story does feel pretty conclusive. So Doma Castle has fallen. We have repelled the Empire from the lands. Now it's back to Alamigo, which I continue to say, this part of the, like this duality of this expansion, I really don't care about the Alamigo main scenario. I cared about it more in post-game, and I cared about Lisa's development more. Like I felt the story focused a lot on Lisa in a really interesting way. And her story I was all about, but the whole like Alamigo thing, I don't know, the other characters in that part were just not really interesting. So as we go back to Alamigo, we eventually learn that Kral got captured by the Empire. We eventually learn that the Empire is building basically the artificial echo through all these machinations that they're doing, you know, doing what Empire stuff do. There is a primal summoning of Lakshmi, which I really do not care about. And the fact that we had to fight it twice just seemed unnecessary. Although the second time you fight Lakshmi is more interesting with the story plot point you get there. So anyways, the Alliance counterattacks the Empire. There's a massive cannon. Estinian just shows up just to show off of destroying a massive cannon. If Estinian keeps doing this throughout the other expansions, like, I mean, he's already cool enough. He doesn't need to keep aura farming in every expansion. Like Estinian, you had your moment in Heavenward. Let other characters do things here. So we save Krile. We get some backstory on Raban, which made me think of like, why does Raban get all this exposition and all of this development as a character and as a story when the other two starting base characters get like pretty much no interesting backstory. I don't remember what they are. I think in Gridania it was like Connie or something. And then there's the pirate lady that I forget her name. Like those characters, unless something else happens post Stormblood, get very little development compared to Raban, who was way more developed in Realm Reborn, and then kept having a story arc in Heavensward, and then fully fleshed out in Stormblood. It's like, I can see some favoritism here. So if you started the game in Ul'dah, I feel that as a player, you get a lot more of a rich story than if you start off in Gridania, which is where I started, and nothing seems to happen out of Gridania. Nobody cares about Gridania. We also capture Fordola and all of this crazy stuff. Again, I could be paraphrasing. This was a few months ago. And side story, I finally learned what my True North ability does. So as I play this game, I never play my games optimally, so I'm always learning things. So True North was an ability I never equipped. And to be fair, I don't think I really value it that much. My community's like, why aren't you using that? That's a very important ability for Samurai. If I recall correctly, it basically lets you attack use some of your abilities without needing to be like, positionals. It lets you ignore positionals, so you don't have to attack enemies from the back or the side with certain attacks. You can get full damage just by doing it, which, okay, if you're optimizing DPS, I get it, but like, that's just not how I play. Another thing that I did is I properly remapped all my hotbars. Maybe not properly, but at least for Samurai class, I've optimized my hotbars after watching some other YouTube videos of how to play, because people were criticizing me of how bad my layout was, and I get it now. I get it. It was really bad, and I was missing a lot of abilities that I had already unlocked, so I was really limiting my damage output as a DPS, which isn't good. And it's just so much easier. I used to be like, all my buttons were everywhere. I had to push so many buttons just to do my combos. Now I've optimized it where I have to push very few buttons to do my combos, and it just flows so much better. There's still a little bit of fine tuning to do of like, where to put my sprint button and emotes and all that. Oh, that's another thing. I never used my hotbars for emotes now. Now I do, and I'm gonna optimize that eventually to have like more of a social hotbar for when we're just goofing off. I used to go into like the start menu and find my emotes. Like, it was so painful. Now I can actually pop an emote a lot more easy. So with that, the next step was to actually take on the Empire at the main base of Alamigo. Again, I love these epic setups where we've got the cannons firing on these big doors, and we've got the whole alliance coming together, including Hien flying in with the eagles. And this dungeon was really cool because there was one of my favorite bosses, which is the FF7 Scorpion fight, it's the first major boss of FF7. I forget the name of it. But to see that in my FF14, I was like, oh, don't attack it when the tail is up. It was just kind of cool. I was just nerding out over it. All this, we finally got our Xenos fight, and we thought we killed Xenos, only for him to be like, whoa, one more fight. I'm like, yeah, it's a Square Enix game, whatever. And then he monologues forever, and I was watching back my stream because some people were telling me, how do you not know this part of the story? It was like described at this part. So watching back my streams, I realized he monologues so freaking hard, I completely zoned out. Like, I can actually see on stream where I'm just no longer paying attention. Like, I'm just looking at my chat and talking with them because he's just monologuing forever. So anyways, he monologues about how he has this artificial echo and how that, I have a gift and I'm not using it properly. And then he goes into Shinryu, the whole big dragon thing that we saw at the end of Heavensward. And off he goes into another fight to finally seal the deal. We kill him. He commits seppuku by slicing himself. I'm like, finally, we're done with Xenos. Turns out, nope. Because nobody ever dies forever in this game, which I really disagree with, especially for Xenos. He was a character that I felt was a good villain because he was a very like simple, motivated villain of just like, he just wants to fight the next strongest. And he got humbled. He found someone stronger than him, and like, that should be the end of his arc, where he's like, oh, I finally met my match, and that's it. And I let's tie it up and pass it off. He has no other complexity. What else do you want to give him? But no, they have to go and spend all the post game of Stormblood reviving him in a way that I was not expecting. So again, I'm jumping around here, but at the end of the post game of Stormblood, you learn that the body of Xenos is possessed by an Ascian, which I get. That makes sense because that doesn't mean the character of Xenos is alive. That's cool. The Ascians are manipulative. That's how you do manipulation. You embody this other character. Where I completely got caught off guard is that Xenos' soul transported into this character that I did not recognize and that I feel a bit embarrassed because my entire community, when they did the reveal of that Xenos' soul, I did not pick up on it. They're like, how could you not? It was his voice and everything. I played the game over so long, I don't recognize the nuance between voices, I guess. I just didn't pick up on it. I'm like, why is that Xeno? Why is he in another body? Why is he still alive? What is going on? So Xenos, the person, is in another body. With what motivator? He wants to fight me again? Like, I don't know what he's up to. And then there's Xenos the body, which is manipulated by the Ascian, which we know what they want. I think, if I remember correctly, the Ascians are there to like seed turmoil and try to bring like all the universes together. I could be wrong there. I did know it at one point, but I did not refresh myself on the notes of what the Ascians' true motive are. It's probably very relevant for what Shadowbringers are. Again, I told you this is a lot of 2.5 months of thoughts all being distilled into this one video. So sorry if I'm losing track of things. All right, so anyways, Stormblood is done. We get the Alamigo anthem playing, and we get a really cool cutscene with some beautiful artwork. This is probably the most beautiful artwork of Lee's I've ever seen. Absolutely love it. I think it was here and not in the post 4.55 game credits, because there's 2 credits. So I could be confusing myself again, as I usually do. Anyways, with Stormblood done, we go into the post game, which honestly, I found the post game to be way more interesting and well structured and well paced compared to the expansion, and also compared to the other post game. Maybe it's because I understand the flow now, but I did not feel like the Realm Reborn and Heavenward post game was as well structured and contained as the Stormblood. Like, I felt an arc from beginning to end of each patch that was very satisfying. Like the fact that I can refer to patch 5.2, and know that that is the Gotsuyu and Suyi arc. The fact that I can point to 5.1 being, okay, Alamigo is freed. How do we govern this land? And then 5.3 and beyond, I think that's when it starts bleeding into some Shadowbringer setup. Yeah, we got Lee's leaving to govern Alamigo, which again, I feel that completes her narrative arc in a very satisfying way. Like Lee's literally went from feeling like having pretty much imposter syndrome to becoming the leader of her people, which is freaking fantastic. We could dissect that in a whole other video. We got Sid and Nero teaming up, which that's always cool. I don't know what that is. I think it may be, I think that could be related to the Omega raid, which I haven't done yet. That's what's coming up next. In fact, I'm doing it the week after I record this journal. We did some, I did some side dungeons, which really I don't have much to say. There was the underwater temple I did, which really nothing about that stood out to me. A lot of the post-game stuff, I'll just mention I did it, but a lot of the things I just did not care about. There was the whole primal summoning of Lakshmi again, which was the trap in the whole new Alamigo leadership, which again, cool, and like it's fine. I didn't really have any emotional reaction to that. Going next into, what is the next thing that we covered in, oh right, Alphino heading out to Garlemald and being introduced to the Ascian Hunter. I found this was actually kind of interesting. This whole like, let's explore some Imperial wanting to do peace with the Eorzean Alliance and learning like I actually saw the potential. I'm like, wait, the whole empire exists to pretty much just ensure that there's no more summoning and wiping like out the whole like summoning thing. I'm like, that's what we're trying to do. We're basically 2 sides of the same coin. Why aren't we like getting along? And it felt like the story was heading in a part to a place where we could maybe see eye to eye with the empire. And I thought maybe Shadowbringers would be like, maybe we go explore what Garlemald is all about. I don't know if that land is ever accessible in FF14, but that's like what I was thinking. Then Alphino's ship gets shot down or something. They land in the place called the Burn, and this Ascian Hunter picks them up, which we later learn is none other than our very first villain from Realm Reborn, who, what was his name? Was it Galvis? Baelsar. The guy who monologued forever on the elevator before the Ultima weapon. So there's another guy we thought was dead, which turns out not dead. Like, cool throwback, but weird throwback. Out of all the characters to bring back, why him? Well, I guess he was the most iconic in the early days of Imperial content in this game. So, okay, but weird, just weird. I'm okay with it, but weird. Like, I'd rather they bring him and keep Xenos dead. So then we get the subplot of, okay, we still got to fight ourselves through Garlemald. Let's put up a shield over in the desert so that we're like disrupting the flow of Garlean airships. That's cool. And then we got a very iconic fight for me, which was the Sadhu fight. This is a one-on-one fight where you have to go fight Sadhu of the Shia tribe, I believe it's called, one of those tribes. and I did not know the fight, and I kept dying, and the game kept taunting me of like, do you want to go on an easier mode? And I was like, no, I will not do this, especially not in front of the community. So I kept going. The first time I died, I didn't know that you were supposed to kill like these monuments around, and that you get one hit KO pretty much if you let them live too long. Then in phase 5, oh, that's another thing. They just kept throwing so many phases of Sadu at me. I'm just like, oh, stop it. Like, it was a 5-phase fight. In the 5th one, there's a meteor dropping down, and I wasn't aggressive the first time, so I wiped to that. Got back in, optimized my rotations, like really focused on DPS check, and cleared it. Finally killed her. Only for a cutscene to roll, and then it throws you into a whole other fight with Y'shtola. And this was like, I didn't have the time to read my, I don't know, I think I moved forward, so I didn't know what Y'shtola's moves were. And I died because I didn't see I was supposed to like kill these axes on the battlefield. So that died. So I had to restart the whole thing. And this was a freaking long fight. And then again, going back in, I didn't know I was supposed to keep Hien alive because I've never played healer before. And so I had to start the fight again because Hien died because I was just focusing on doing damage to our little son, which, by the way, that is probably one of my favorite burns in all media, how Y'shtola was being hit on by the dude. And she's just like, oh, you poor little son. Just like that was just chef's kiss of how you turn down a very cocky character. Love it. So that took me, I rage quit a stream on that fight and had to finish it on another stream just because I was dying so many times and it was such a pain to restart everything. But hey, it reminds me of Dark Souls. It's how you learn. You just gotta restart. Oh yeah, then we start losing our scions, and I feel this is starting to like sow the seeds of what Shadowbringers is all about. So we get our first sign of like throw wide the gates voice in our heads, and then first we lose Thancred. Then we go meet Urianger and we lose him, which is fine. Keep him. We don't want him. Then we lose Y'shtola. Oh, this was actually interesting. I kind of liked how we explored Alisaie's character of like feeling helpless and losing her friends and her brother. Like she is really showing how she's kind of losing control at this part. And I felt that previously in all FF14 lore, she was always kind of the calm character that always had it like kept together. And I feel this is the first time you really see Alisaie start being very vulnerable and starting to feel panic of like, what is going on? These scions, they're like dying, but they're not dead, and we don't know what's going on. My first thought about what's going on is the soul of the scions are probably being taken to another dimension. And again, my understanding of the FF14 lore is not that well versed. I know that there is there are like 14 parallel universes from what I understand, because we got the Warrior of Darkness that showed up last expansion, and they came from the land of where the light went unchecked and basically nobody can live there because it's just pure light. And then there's the source, which if I remember right, like our old scion leader that starts with an M, Minfilia, I think she's stuck at the source or became like some kind of heavenly power there. And so I think something's happening in these alternate dimension and the scions are being pulled away to like help solve whatever that conflict is. And I think Shadowbringers explores some multiverse conflict. That's what I think. And I think that actually, I don't know. We're gonna get into the Shadowbringers speculation soon. What else to talk about? Oh yeah, we got introduced to Xenos' grandfather, which is also an Ascian from what I understand. And the music they play when they introduce this guy, Solus is also Galvis. I think we just call him Solus. It gave me Kefka vibes from FF6, and it just feels like the music suggests he's a very manipulative character, and it also looks like he's a manipulative character, just being behind the Empire, controlling everything. And I'm not sure if the original grandfather was this, or if this is another Ascian doing a Xenos puppeteer thing again. But like right now it's definitely an Ascian, but I don't know how long it's been going on. Then we had the peace negotiations with Varys, the Emperor. That, I love that whole like exploration, that whole tension. And I really thought something good could have happened, but of course for plot reasons, they can't get along. And then we get a very cool final conflict between the Empire and the Alliance, where we again get to fight as Hien, fighting off the Empire until the Warrior of Light arrives. I felt that was a very cool, iconic way to build up into this climactic moment of like, it reminded me a lot. I always refer a lot to Dragon Ball. This was clearly like a very impactful story to me in my upbringing. But like in Dragon Ball, they're always fighting off like the big bad until Goku arrives. And this felt like I was playing the chump characters, just like fighting off the big bad until the Warrior of Light, aka me, showed up. And then when the Warrior of Light shows up, like you just get this really cool cinematic of like, I'm finally here. And then we get to fight Xenos freaking again, one-on-one. And I died because I didn't know about the pillars. You can see I die a lot in these fights because I just did not know. I'm just not very familiar with MMO mechanics. So I keep dying to them. Anyways, we get teleported over to some Kingdom Heart ring where we meet this weird keeper of the gates or something. Again, this all feels very multi-dimensional. And he says, I've left you something at the Crystal Tower, go find it. Another thing that annoys me about this guy, not another thing, but a thing that annoys me about this guy, we ask what his name is. He's like, there is no time for that. Let me just describe this very lengthy thing when he could have just been like, my name is John. I hate this narrative trope of like, I cannot give you my name. I cannot reveal my identity because I want to keep the mysticism around. Like, no way is that realistic in any way. Imagine in any context of anyone asking your name, it's 1 or 2 syllables, 3 syllables max to say your name. And you could just be like, my name's John, doesn't matter. I'll tell you later what that means. For now, let's focus on this thing. It's a trope. It irks me. It irks me so much. It's a cheap way to keep mystery around. So yeah, that's the end of Stormblood. All the post-endgame content of Stormblood done. We get the confirmation that Xenos is in another body. Off we go to Shadowbringer trailer. And this is the part where really I was like, okay, let's see if any of my guesses kind of line up with what's being teased. I was told Shadowbringer is one of the best expansion, that this is one of the best trailers. I have to say the energy of this trailer is top notch, but I say that about all the FF14 trailers. They just do them so well. But like we get like a cool guitar riff on this. It's good. So also another thing is we see like the transition of the Warrior of Light through all the classes starting with the first one. And I never quite realized that my own choices as the Warrior of Light were canon up to the first to some point. Like my very first class playing FF14 was the Archer. In the trailer, it shows the Warrior of Light starting off as an Archer. Then become the Warrior. That's exactly what I did. I went Warrior. Then he becomes Dragoon. I didn't do that. Then he becomes Monk. I didn't do that either. Then he becomes Samurai. Right back to what I was doing. So I went Archer, Warrior, Samurai. So I'm kind of following the canon like Warrior of Light from the trailers, which is pretty cool. It looks like our next major villain is some kind of angelic villain, which is interesting because the whole theme of the trailer is like we have to embrace darkness, we have to fight off the light. So I'm wondering if basically whatever happened at the end of Heaven's Ward with the Warrior of Darkness that we met, if that what happened in their world is now happening in our world. That just seems to be the most logical path that I can see. We're also seeing that all the Scions are fine in the story. They all have got cool new like outfits, but they're all on weird missions, and there's some weird like we see Y'shtola being revealed that I think she was being referred to as Matoya by Urianger, because at first I'm like, oh, it's Matoya, but young, because you see the young lips. But then the hood comes off and it's Y'shtola, and I was like, is that the same like scene? Is that the same character? Why is Y'shtola being called Matoya? Matoya was her master. What's going on here? Urianger, I mean, I don't care about him. He finally gets a new outfit. That's good. Thancred looks awesome, but he's now with a young Minfilia. What's up with that? Are they like, did she get reborn or something? Or are they in another dimension? That's what I think. Like, I think everything points to the Scions are in other dimensions. We're being attacked by a source of light, or light's going to go rampant in our dimension. And so that's why we have to become the Warrior of Darkness. Anyways, with that set up, I can see why I would want to be what's the class that the character is canon here? It's the Dark Knight. So next, like I've gone my fill of Samurai. I think it's time to finally switch it up. We'll go Dark Knight, which means I think it's a tank class. So I'm going to have to learn how to tank. So that's the MSQ. A little bit of side stuff just to keep padding this journal because it's not freaking long enough. I have finally taken on Rathalos and FF14. It's kind of a reason I started FF14 2-3 years ago, was like, what's the Rathalos fight like? It was okay. It was actually fun. I felt that they gave it, like they made homage, but I felt Bahamut in Monster Hunter World was more fun than Rathalos than FF14, but it's also very different mechanics. Like you can only do so much with an MMO, but I felt that they just did a really good job at it. Like the fact that you have the Palico that's in there, the fact that there's the whole topple from like the elephant type creature that can topple a monster and it lets you like bash on them, that you can cut off the tail and focus on the tail, and that there's the mega potion button. Like it's all great homage to Monster Hunter. I don't think like any player playing that would be incentivized to like, oh, I'm curious to see what Monster Hunter is about. Like, it's just such a different game, I feel. Whereas the other way is not true. I feel by playing Bahamut in Monster Hunter World, you're like, well, that was a cool monster. Let me see what that's like in FF14. And that's just a very different kind of thing. I saw what's required to get a Rathalos mount. It's quite the grind. I'm not saying I won't do it. I'm just not in a hurry to do it right now. I got my Classy, so I'm happy. My Palico, my minion, he's in FF14. I'm naming him Classy, of course. So I'm happy with that. While all this was happening, I've also been able to do another little ladies' day. I was around for that event, and it was very cool to see. I didn't know that Nashu had a sister, and much less that she was a pop star. So I got to meet Nashu's sister. I also got some cool glow sticks and a t-shirt. So that's my little thing for Little Ladies Day. I did a lot of catch-up content here, which I don't have much to say about. I just want to share that I actually have done it. I did the whole Heaven's Ward trials, which I didn't even know was a thing. I started learning more about the structure of post-game FF14. And so I went back and did it. The Heaven's Ward trials, like, there were cool fights and everything. I enjoy doing them with the community, but I don't really have anything to say much about the lore of it. Same with Heaven's Ward Sky Pirates, the Alliance raid. I did that. They're fun to do. I just don't care about the lore enough to share anything on here. Like, I'd rather just kind of do the content than talk about the lore. I'd have to read the lore really like in depth to have an intellectual conversation and thought on it. Otherwise, it just didn't hook me at all. What did stand out to me in the Sky Pirates thing is the fact that they have this super creepy cat that they chose to call Kate Sith. I was like, that ain't my Kate Sith. This is a very strange design for a Kate Sith. There's one boss that stood out to me from Sky Pirates, and that is Death Gaze Hollow. Holy heck, was that hard. And it completely reminded me of the boss from FF6, the optional boss, which chases you on the airship, which I had completely forgotten about it, but my community reminded me of, like, do you recognize this boss? And we got to meet the god, I guess, that the whole server is named after. So I play on Diabolos, and we finally found a monster called Diabolos. So we got to see what he looks like. He's cool. I also got to do the Stormblood trials, which, again, I don't have much to say. The fights were okay. The whole story of friendship, I didn't care much for. I did the Kugane Castle side quests in Stormblood, which I loved. I loved the theme. I loved that the final fight is Yojimbo. I know I've seen Yojimbo in other media, so it was very accurate. It was very fun. I did catch up on my Hildebrand, so I've done Hildebrand Heaven's Ward, which was way more like just funny than the Realm Reborn. Well, Realm Reborn had more depth. This felt like a nice little succinct chapter from the whole finding Gigi and the antics of Hildebrand adopting Gigi as a son, which I shared in my last journal. I saw more the story of these three old warriors that were basically trying to find the Fountain of Youth through Gigi. They found it, but all the antics that ensued of, like, from the old Dragoon dying to his attack to their intro of one character, I think they're called Gonspart, but the first time you see them, they're like posing and they're like, I'm Goonspart. So I thought his name was like Goonspart, so I called him Goonspart for the rest of the time. Just fantastic humor. I just love the Hildebrand questline so much, and I wish it was integrated in the main story questline, or that kind of humor was integrated in the main story quest. In terms of what's left, so all of my Heaven's Ward stuff is now caught up on. I still have to do the Hildebrand quest for Stormblood, and I'm just about starting the Ivalice Alliance raid, which, again, the lore does not seem that interesting to me. And I'm also going to do the Omega raid next. So those are the three things left. Then we're done Stormblood, and I can finally start heading into Shadowbringers. But to take it back to the beginning of why pretty much Stormblood was not quite what I expected, I was really hoping, well, actually, like, the samurai aspect of the expansion, which is what I was looking forward to the most, was my favorite part, and it was well handled, except the samurai storyline. But, like, the whole Kugane quest and what we did on that part of the world was cool. It was really the Alamigo. I was not expecting that Alamigo arc to be so, I don't know, dull and inspired. Maybe it's because it's all desert setting too. I just didn't care about that part of the world. It was kind of boring. It was just sand. I don't like sand. So that's where I am. It was a very meaty journal. If you've made it all the way till the end, thank you so much for watching and catching up. This was a lot for me to digest, and I hope I did it justice. Let me know what you think of your thoughts on Stormblood. The next journal will very likely be my thoughts on the Omega raid, as well as what it looks like in Monster Hunter Wilds. And then we're gonna see what Shadowbringers is all about, and how much better of an expansion that is. So thanks again for watching, and until next time, keep it classy.